we've got down to, we're looking at discourse, and we've seen that, does my structure have an appropriate macrostructure? Does the introduction prepare the reader for what follows? Are all the major points in a logical manner? Have I used transition words to show the reader the relationship between ideas? Do all the major points fit together? Oops. Am I writing according to the conventions of my discipline or text type? Do I group the headings under appropriate headings and subheadings? Is my information from general to specific? So lots of things to think about, but most importantly, how do I do it? How do I make sure that my discourse is right at the composition stage? My suggestion is macrostructure first, table of contents. Then start dot pointing. Dot point, dot point, dot point, dot point. Then look at my dot points and see how does each dot point lead to the next dot point. Then I practice talking about it. See how much work I've done. I haven't written a single sentence, no sentences yet. Then I write the sentences. Then I put in the paragraphs, etc., etc. And I always start with the first sentence of each paragraph and then the dot points under it. And I see how does it all develop and fit together. Right, so I've written my document. How do I edit it? How do I check it? Any suggestions?
Make sure you got all relevant, important components.
How do I do that?
Because those things is logic things. From what do you want to extract? What do you want to improve based on previous research?
Yeah.
So you got the logic.
Yes.
Multiplied stuff.
But to make sure my logic is good, first give my table of contents to someone else to read. See if my friend can tell the story without reading the documents. Then, see if I just highlight the first sentence of each paragraph. Does my story make sense? And then, within each paragraph, check from sentence to sentence. What's the link from this sentence to this sentence? What's the link from this sentence to this sentence? So in a sense, when you're editing for discourse, you're editing 3 times. You're first checking your table of contents. Then you're checking your ideas paragraph. And then you're looking sentence from sentence. 3 edits for 1 element. Okay, that's why you can't start writing the 6 months before your thesis is due. It takes too long. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is voice. Now, I was amazed. I see referencing there at the back. Well done. I see active and passive. I see formality and informality. But none of you said the big P word. Plagiarism. None of you said I mustn't plagiarize. Now, I don't think, yes.
I just want to pitch in there. In my proposal, I wrote a paragraph about plagiarism.
Yes.
How are you going to trying to indicate that I acknowledge that there's plagiarism and then I have to avoid it, and then how am I going to avoid it?
Yeah, but we all sign that very beautifully, and none of you plagiarize on purpose. But so many of us don't write the literature with sufficient own voice. It's that literature that's the problem. Your own research, you're never going to plagiarize. It's that literature. How do I use other people's work? Right, and then we have the other problem as well. So this lady, Chanok, back in 2003, she said, yes, some inappropriate citation. I prefer not to say plagiarism, I say inappropriate citation. Because none of you really plagiarize on purpose. None of you are doing like the undergraduates, copying and pasting. Or just copying. I know you're not doing that, but we still struggle sometimes. She says sometimes it's laziness. We just don't have enough time, so then we gobble up the other people's words. She says sometimes it's we don't have the language because we're struggling with the English, the highly difficult English. She says sometimes it's because we want to say we respect the sources. Now, I never plagiarized necessarily, but I used to quote forever. And my supervisor said, Michelle, where are you in this literature review? I said, right at the bottom of the page there. She said, that's not good enough, because I respected the sources. Sometimes we have lack of confidence in our own ideas, and sometimes we feel powerless. How can I be critical? I'm just new in academia.
Excuse me, Michelle.
Yes.
You know, regarding that, when you'll be asked, where's your voice?
Yes.
In terms of politics, and maybe you mean it in
Yes.
terms of psychology, you'll be trying to put your ideas.
Yes.
Then you'll be asked later, say, where are the sources?
Exactly.
Then you put your own ideas, because I know about this thing.
Yes.
I've been working with this thing and I understand the status quo regarding this issue.
Yes.
But now here they're asking me, where are the sources?
Well, you are in the horns of a dilemma, and this is what Ira calls be original, but not too original. She says they are always telling us to be original, but there are many things that we borrow constantly as researchers. We borrow the document structure. We've just been talking about the genres that have traditional structures. We have conventions of our citation that we need to put in. We have disciplinary language that all needs to be copied. So where does my voice come in? Well, my thing is, I think it starts in how we prepare to write. Because if we again are just throwing our ideas and vomiting them up on the page, the plagiarism happens. But if we are reading, we are separating the English from the content. Is this an English word? Is this a content word? If we're taking really good notes, if we're organizing, categorizing, we just don't say Smith says blah, blah, blah. Rogers says blah, blah, blah. Matswane says blah, blah, blah. No, instead we're saying a number of scholars have focused on blah, blah, blah. We're grouping them together. And we're doing that in the note-taking stage. That's why I said the note-taking is so important. We're doing that in the categorizing, the organizing stage. Then only we're dot pointing and writing our ideas. Then only we're speaking about them, practicing. And then we're popping in the citations at the appropriate places. But it's that talking about it, dot pointing, organizing. Your voice is shown in your organizing intelligence that you're showing on the page.
I think the
Yes.
other thing is, from my experience, I struggled to read literature to get ideas and all that stuff. I ended up saying, let me leave it out. And then I just wrote what comes to my idea. And then after writing, I went to literature.
That's another way around, yes.
And then I managed to channel.
Another way around is I actually rarely say to people, do it physically. You read the paragraph. If you're keeping the article with you like this, and you're writing and you're reading, you're going to have problems. If you're struggling and you say, all these ideas look important, I want to copy everything in this paragraph, then read the paragraph, put the paper on the other side of the room, come down and sit down and write. And you will find you will still use some disciplinary language, but it will come across much clearer. But literally force yourself to do that. I've done experiments in workshops like this where I've had more time, and I've got the students to paraphrase with the article with them, and the other half of the class had to read and put the article on the other side of the page. It is amazing how much better those who put it on the side of the... And even their English was better. Because we get so held onto other people's words that we do what Martin calls paraphrasing plagiarism, where we're trying to change every second word, but then our grammar goes all wonky because we're keeping the original grammar. Okay, so as these people say, we want to hear a feeling, hearing, sensing person behind the written work. And the only way we can do this is if we practice talking, like you, telling your story first, and then putting the references. Okay, so very good. Draft your research story in dot points, then add the facts or literature. Tell your research story verbally to a colleague. Learn to quote, paraphrase, and summarize.